afternoon, everybody. It is Jay Scott. This is The Hook Rocks, the ultimate rock community podcast. Hope you're having a great day, as I am. Today, our guest hails from Athens, Georgia. We have John Strickland from the band Lullwater. How you doing today, John?
Hey, Jay. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking the time. I always love and enjoy focusing on new bands with a new music spotlight. I know you guys have been around for a while, but in terms of people knowing you guys, in terms of people trying to, listen to you guys and you guys growing your audience, I find it a great opportunity for you to come on and talk about yourselves and your music and hopefully, gain some more audience.
Absolutely.
First question is always the same every time we have a new guest on the show. And that is the essence of the Hook Rocks podcast. And that is just like every rock song has a hook that sucks you in. Every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, an album, a band, or performance that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
I think one of those moments for me was we toured with Cannabis for about 8 weeks. And we covered Release by Pearl Jam, and it's on the Seattle Sessions EP that we have. It's on SoundCloud or whatever. And we were playing Release, opening up for Cannabis, and Dave Cruzen, who is Cannabis' drummer, was also in Pearl Jam and was on Pearl Jam 10. And he was in the green room apparently in one of the Houston shows, and he's like kind of popped out. It's like, yeah, I think I know that song. And we're like, oh yeah, you definitely know that song. So he came on stage and played with us for that song, maybe 8-9 shows on that tour. So he would hop behind the kit, and Cruisen would come up, get on his kit, and him and Joe would play Release as the full band doing that cover, the Pearl Jam cover. So that to me was some craziness. That was special for sure.
Now, was Pearl Jam a big influence for you growing up?
It is. Yeah. Pearl Jam is definitely a big influence for me, a big band for me. When I heard Pearl Jam 10, when I was in middle school, it kind of shifted my taste in music. I started listening to a lot more grunge and alternative rock, and that record kind of got me into a lot of the late 80s, early 90s Seattle bands that came out at the time. But yeah, Pearl Jam's always been a really big band for me. I've been a Pearl Jam fan for a long time.
Who was the artist that made you want to pick up a guitar?
I think I've always grown up in music. My mom's always played piano. My sister was, she was older than me, so she would always bring in, Violent Femmes and U2 and just everything, Boston Records, the whole thing. So I always looked, growing up, my sister always gave me the new music. But as far as playing the guitar, my buddy Joey Dombrowski, he was like a phenom. He was like the best drummer at 12 years old and guitar player. He could shred Van Halen, at 13 and 14. So he really got me into playing guitar, just because he was kind of the first musician friend of mine that I ever had. So I kind of picked up the acoustic and we started jamming, and that was kind of my, he was the guy that got me into playing. But yeah, it was, it was kind of crazy. I mean, we, growing up in a musical house and having friends that play, we would rehearse every day, and, we started bands together. So that's kind of what got me going.
Was there any guitar players that influenced your style of play?
I was never really good at lead. I was always kind of focused on, I would write songs as a kid. So my biggest thing was being a vocalist, is singing and writing songs and being a songwriter, to where I would always have really good lead guitar players around me, So I would just kind of go, all right, I'm going to practice and try to get better at lead, but the bands that I was in always had a really good lead guitar player. But stylistically, I think a lot of the earlier stuff was a lot of drive-by truckers and Pearl Jam, Nirvana, a lot of the the bands like that. Leonard Skinner was a big influence on me growing up, as far as the Southern rock band goes. But yeah, I would say, man, I would definitely say, in between Stone Gossard, Pearl Jam, and Kurt Cobain, those guys were definitely a big influence on my writing.
Was there a song that you heard that you said to yourself, you know what, I connected with that song. I want to write something like that. I want to create a piece of art that connects with people such as this song did for me. Was there that moment for you?
You know, there were moments like that, and there have been moments like that. I would say a lot of early Foo Fighters, there were songs. I mean, when All My Life came out, that song just kind of hit me really hard as far as the energy goes. And I've always wanted to kind of write a song like that, but I don't think I've gotten there yet. But yeah, I mean, I would say, trying to think of another song too that, I remember being a kid and listening to the Boston album over and over and over again, and every song on that record was just so powerful to me. You know, and they were simple chords. As far as the lead goes, it was, you know, pretty intense, but a lot of the Boston songs in the 80s were simple chord progressions, and honestly, I think More Than a Feeling was one of those songs that I got really pumped about when I first heard it, and I was playing acoustic. So I think, you know, that would have been one for me.
You guys are from Athens, Georgia, and I have to say that there's a lot of artists that I find remarkable to come out of the state of Georgia, whether it's, you know, Blackberry Smoke, whether it's Butch Walker, Driving and Crying, Jackal, the band Biters, which is now kind of migrated in the band Tuck Smith and the Lonely Hearts, and then you guys. But is there a focus on Georgia-based bands when you're kind of growing up in that area, in that state, listening to artists that have gone on to bigger things?
The Drive-By Truckers were a really good band for me, and they're from Athens. I think Patterson I think he's moved out to Portland now. But for me, definitely when I moved to Athens, I went to UGA and I moved here to go to school, and Dead Confederate and Drive-By Truckers were definitely my favorite bands to see live, and also their records. But before that, the only band that I'd really ever heard of, being from Athens, growing up, was Widespread Panic and REM and B-52s, you know, back in that era of Athens music. But yeah, I would say the coolest bands that I fell in love with when I came to Athens were definitely Drive-By Truckers and Dead Confederate, which Dead Confederate broke up several years ago. Hardy still plays a lot, and he's always on tour. But that band just blew me away. They were unbelievable, and definitely influenced kind of our early days of writing in Athens.
The Drive-By Truckers have that song, I think it's "Let There Be Rock," which is about going to concerts when you're a kid, and I totally connect with that song. It's like, are they writing about my childhood in this song? Because it's like, you know, because the bands they talk about and the concerts when you were a little kid. I mean, I started sneaking out and going to concerts when I was very young, sleeping over at friends' house. We'd say we'd be going somewhere. We end up at a concert. We'd ride our bikes to concert halls and, you know, lock them up outside, and we'd be surrounded by, you know, late teenagers, you know, adults, and we'd be like 11, 12 years old, just like rocking out.
That's awesome.
So when I hear that song, I'm like, I love this tune. It just has a total connection with me and just my youth and how they kind of roll out and how they approach the whole song.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Truckers just they kill it. I mean, I remember the 2004 40-watt show was like one of the first, you know, 40-watt shows that I'd ever seen when I moved to Athens. And they had the DVD with it. It's when Jason Isbell was in the band, Shauna was in the band, and they just, I mean, they blew the roof off of that venue. And I remember just thinking after that show, just good God, like how cool is this band? And just, dove into it. Listen to Pizza Deliverance, and then Decoration Day, which is probably one of my favorite records. Yeah, man, they just have this, and they have this no bullshit, like in your face Southern rock style, obviously with Patterson and Cooley, their writing styles and their non-apologetic lyrical content. They're such a cool band.
Yeah, it's one band I have yet to check out live, and I have to do it. I mean, it seems like every time they come to Chicago, I'm like, I have something else going on, or I can't make it, but I got to do it. I think they're touring in 2020, and I have to make it a point to go see them because I'm a huge fan myself.
Dude, they are loud too. You would never believe how loud the drive-by truckers are.
Really?
You would, yeah. They are so loud in a great way, which I'm feeling half deaf anyway, just from being on the road. But it's one of those shows that it's, when they do the rock and stuff like Lookout Mountain, and they do a lot of the their rock tunes, they just crank it so where you feel the whole show. I mean, you're submersed in a drive-by trucker show. I mean, it's definitely an experience, man. I hope you can catch it.
Moving on to you guys in your history. You guys were, started out in 2007. What is the history of Lullwater?
The history of the band, we say we started in 2007, which I think, technically we did. But we were just a bunch of young, college kids that played cover shows to pay rent. And we played, college bars. That's, in Athens back in 2007, 2008, that era, there was lots of live music. I mean, there were bands playing everywhere, downtown. And unfortunately, just like a lot of parts of the country, several music venues have closed in Athens that were iconic stages, like Tasty World, for instance. So we started out cutting our teeth, man. I mean, I think a lot of what we wanted to do was just, in the early days of the band, it was just kind of a free for all. And then we played covers, and we do this, and we regionally tour around, play Wild Wings, and play 3-hour cover shows so that we could make money for paying rent and school and stuff like that. And then, I kind of took the reins there and made a decision to do, let's stop all this mess and do original music. Went through several lineup changes, and kind of went through the growing pains of every band kind of has that. And we were no exception. I mean, we went through that. We went through like 3 bass players and, 2 guitar players, 2 drummers, and all that stuff. But around 2011 is when we really got serious with what we were doing. And not necessarily saying serious, but we solely focused on original music and recording because we had done demos prior to leaving to Seattle to do the self-titled record. But it just wasn't there yet. And then we went to Seattle, and that's really when it's kind of all started for us.
How was that decision to go from playing covers? Because we all know cover bands bring in more people than original music in some areas, but in most areas they do. And you get paid more. And as a musician and as someone who wants to write, how was that evolution to say, hey, you know what? I love playing out at these gigs, but I'm not being fulfilled enough to keep going and playing someone else's music. How was that?
Oh yeah.
How was that process for you?
The process was kind of a no-brainer, especially for myself and our former guitar player Brett. After a while, man, it burns you out. Like it was great when you're early 20s, and Brett was, I think, 18 at the time. But after playing Wagon Wheel 3,000 times a night, you know what I mean? It just becomes this monotonous struggle to play these cover shows. And 3 hours is a long time for anyone to play a show. But when you're playing, Last Dance with Mary Jane and all these these cover songs that you know you like to listen to the songs, and then you start playing them in a cover, you know, atmosphere, and it just ruins all that for you. You know, for me anyway, I would just get so frustrated and not be able to let my creative side out as far as writing and creating original music. And that was always the goal for me. And it always been in, you know, I've been in bands when I was in high school and had been in bands leading up to Lullwater, to where, you know, I think that it just got stagnant and stale, and we just couldn't, I didn't want to keep doing that. It got pretty monotonous. And yeah, I mean, playing cover shows and you're doing a 3-hour set in college towns, you are making a lot of money. I mean, you know, and especially doing acoustic gigs. I was doing acoustic gigs like 5 days a week. And Lullwater was doing, you know, sometimes we'd have multiple shows. So, it was a decision to say, look, you know, let's take this, let's move past our original thought, original dynamic of the band, and let's start focusing on creating original music.
2012, the self-titled album is released. Talk about the recording process. Talk about how Lullwater develops their music. Is it you bringing in ideas? Is it a collective effort between all four of you guys? How does that work?
It's definitely collective. I'll bring a song in or an idea, and then we all put our spin, or we all put our input in. Sometimes it makes it, sometimes it doesn't. And just, you know, we all respect each other as songwriters and musicians, to where, for us, especially now, when you're looking at 2011, I would say the majority of the songs coming out were between me and our former guitar player and Ray, writing the songs. And then once we went to Seattle, and that's where our former drummer was let go, and we kind of had to rebuild again. But we had a lot of good songs out of self-titled, and the experience in Seattle definitely tightened us up as a group. And it you know, for the first major recording session, I mean, we've been in studios, done, you know, here and there, but actually going to Seattle for a month, where you are submersed in that environment, it kind of, you know, you either put up or shut up in that instance, you know. So it's not like you can just go home and you're tired or sick or, you know, hungover or whatever, and you have to work a 12-hour day every single day. So it tightened us up. And then once we had the record mix and master for self-titled, then we started touring more on that, small touring. I mean, I was booking the shows myself, and we had the van with no trailer. So we definitely hit the road, and we're road dogs for that duration of time after self-titled.
2015, the second effort comes out. Was that more the same with the writing process? How did you guys grow from the debut into that second record?
Well, Joe Wilson joined the band after self-titled, and then into Revival. So we all kind of stuck to our guns, and I think with the Revival, we were all writing together. You know, we went to Brett's, I think his granddad has like a little beach house in Savannah. So we all crammed in a beach house and wrote the entire record in a couple weeks or whatever. But at that time, Lullwater was really trying to do the DIY and the let's do analog tape again, and let's make it, you know, Motorhead kind of vibe, and let's just, you know, make it, you know, this gritty, grungy, not produced, underproduced actually, and go into it with that mindset of, we're the underdog. You know, we're not gonna sound as produced as like a Nickelback or all these bands that were on the radio, because we were kind of bucking the system at that point, or thought we were, and we were. We felt like we were creating something original and different, and especially sonically. And we had Justin Davis and Stephen Hogan from Seattle to do that record. So we flew to Texas and we did a month there at Sonic Ranch, and yeah, and Revival. You can hear it. You can definitely hear the live sound, and we tried to harness that live sound in Revival, and not make it polished and not make it overproduced. And that's where we were as a band. So yeah, I'm proud of Revival. I think we did a great job on that record, and it was again a new chapter for the band.
That's interesting that you say that, because when I listen to your music, my first thoughts are rawness. It's in your face. It's, it's rock and roll, and it's not too overproduced or, too much compression or whatever. And I often have thought to myself that, yeah, it's similar to like a Motorhead record where you kind of feel the rawness and you kind of feel, it being aggressive. And that's a breath of fresh air, considering a lot of stuff coming out is way overproduced and way overdone. Yeah, and especially in 2014, 15, we did that record. That's exactly what we wanted. We wanted the human element to be apparent. It was in that time there wasn't a lot of overproduced rock music, and we just didn't want to do that. I mean, we wanted to do, four guys in a room just cranking out heavy, aggressive songs and capturing that on analog tape. And analog tape is a pain. I mean, I love it. I'm glad we've done it. We've done it twice. But it tightens you up for sure, because analog is unforgiving. You have to be on it. You have to be prepared, and you have to be really serious about the recording process, because, it's not like Logic or Pro Tools where you just go, all right, start over. Let's do it again. You have to rewind the tape and cut it again, Or with the technology, you have more of an ability to cover up your mistakes too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's easier for editing. It's easier for everything. So analog is definitely that. You're going to get the human flaws that are captured in Revival. You can hear flubs or somewhat missed notes. I mean, we would start over if we messed up, but the human element and the rawness of that record is definitely captured on analog.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think people, as time has moved on, have forgotten the essence of rock and roll and the attitude of rock and roll. And it's okay to have that stuff in there. I mean, it's not, rock and roll is not meant to be this overproduced, nicely packaged deal that you put in front of people.
Oh yeah, I agree, man. And I think that's why Revival was done the way that it was done, and the environment that it was done. I mean, yeah, you listen to Rolling Stone records. I mean, some of those takes are what's the word that we would always say at Revival? It was we'd always call it like it was perfect shittiness. Like you captured the rawness of it, and you capture a take that maybe emotionally and the vibe was so much better than a more quote unquote perfect take, to where you feel it. I mean, you feel it, but you hear like, oh, that was kind of dirty, or that was kind of weird. But that's the whole point of rock and roll. And I agree. There's, I feel like in some instances there is that lack of it doesn't have to be perfect. It should be raw, and it should be emotional. If you're capturing these emotional takes that aren't as, technically perfect, that's the point of rock. And that's the point of, especially for us in Revival, is that we would capture those moments and put it on the record, because it was like, oh yeah, you remember this spot in that song to where everybody was either aggravated or beat up or exhausted. But that's what makes, that's what rock and roll is, man. It's raw, and it's definitely an emotional genre of music, where I think some artists and some people are maybe forgetting that. But we try to always keep it as raw as possible and not too produced.
I think of the song Stray Cat Blues off of Beggar's Banquet when I think of the Stones, and I think of the attitude and the rawness of it, and the vibe of that song has such a cool vibe. But there's so many loose ends and so many things going on with that song, but it just works and it sounds cool.
Mm-hmm. It's like Sympathy for the Devil, man. Like that solo is, to me, it's just not a great solo. Right. It's one of the like, what is this? When you hear that, you're kind of like, there's so many better solos in their catalog, but it's I think it was supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be just that simple, kind of shitty, like, screw it. This is rock and roll, and let's do it the way we want to do it.
The new album is Voodoo, and prior to that, you did the Seattle sessions. What was the idea behind revival into the Seattle sessions into the new album Voodoo in terms of your creativity?
So when Revival was done, we toured on that record, and by chance we were coming through Seattle on a tour. I think in 2014, maybe, I can't remember. Austin Plum at London Bridge was like, "Hey guys, if you want, we have 3 off days. If you guys want to do some recording." We had pretty much just gotten back from Seattle, from London Bridge. So Seattle sessions didn't even come out. It came out after Revival, but we'd had those songs for years and years and years. We just didn't do anything with it. But yeah, we went to Seattle again and did Seattle sessions, and it was, again, that was another just raw, like a weekend of just being in the studio and laying down like tracks that we'd already performed live. And then went back on tour again. And then the change, I think, again, Lullwater again, we've had member changes. And when you have a member change, it completely shifts your direction. It shifts your dynamic. When Brett left, it was, we had to find a new lead guitar player, but you have, Daniel Benny, who Benny and I had been in bands before and had worked with each other previously. So when he joined, he's going to bring an entire different element of guitar playing and songwriting to the band. So for us, it was like, all right, well, we have a new guitar player. He's also a great writer. And then you have the relationships that we created from touring and meeting Jacob Herman. We call him the Crazy Swede. He was on tour with Amaranth. And he's a great producer in Gothenburg. I mean, he's done Machine Head and Anthrax and a lot of Swedish metal and rock bands, to where we formed a friendship and relationship on that tour, to where when it was time to do another record, he actually flew into Athens and surprised me and pitched me on working with him on a new record. So he sold us on New Orleans. He sold us on the process and the style, along with Justin Davis coming in from Seattle. So just the band changed. And I think when you're doing records and you're looking at a band's catalog, you look at the members that are in the band at that time, and you kind of see and you can hear the differences between where the band is at that moment in time. And Voodoo captures that. It captures where we were as a band. We've been, road hardened at that point. We've been on the road for a long time. And Daniel Benny joined the band and brought a lot of his influence into the new sound of Lullwater.
The songs Curtain Call, Buzzard, Into the Sun are really kind of highlights for me with the new album. When I saw you guys live this past October with Blacktop Mojo and otherwise, I was completely blown away. It was the first time I had seen you guys. How do you guys, when you have a collective effort like you do, how do you decide which ones stay with in the record, which ones don't make it? How do you guys have that process? What is that process for Lullwater?
It's really, it's organic, and we really go off of feel. And also, between Jacob and Justin being like, all right, that sucks. You know, when you bring a song to producers, especially Jacob Herman, who is, you know, very direct with you. He's like, all right, that's crap. We're not going to do that. And you go, okay, but we were feeling it. And you're like, nah, that's crap. But usually we'll hash that out in the practice space of the band house and figure out if we're feeling it or not. I mean, because there were songs that we would start writing in our writing sessions that we would have in our band house, where if you're not feeling it, if the whole band's not really grooving it while you play it live, it's not necessarily going to make the cut. You know, it might have to be revised and wait for the next record or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of how the process goes with us, where it's like Into the Sun. Benny wrote that song as far as the music goes, and we picked some of these songs from the band that Benny and I were in previously. So we bring that to the table and see if it fits and see if it works out. And the Voodoo record just did. I mean, it was just one of those things where it was, you know, we would butt heads here and there, but for the most part, everybody just got in and dug in for the writing process of Voodoo, and it came out to us the best way that it could.
I've often said, with the way the industry is, right, with the way recording and the process of recording music is right now, you really can't be your biggest fan. And when I say that, I mean, you really need to be able to critique and say no to yourselves if something's not working, if it doesn't sound right. Too many times, especially over the last decade and a half, you hear music, and a lot of it's good, but there's a lot out there that there's no one in the room that has the ability to say, you know what, it's good, but it's not ready. It's not great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of artists, a lot of bands are missing that element with, like what you just said, being, you know, having the ability to say, this sucks. It's not good. It's not ready yet. I think a lot of bands and a lot of artists are missing that.
Well, yeah, I agree. And I think to be able to compromise with yourself, and not necessarily compromise, but to evaluate your creativity. And that's tough because when you write a song, it's a part of you, and it represents a moment in time, or it represents an emotion that you have. And if you feel that deeply, you know, criticism can be very, it can be deflating. But I think the one thing that Lullwater has, and what we do, is that really, if we don't look at it, we wouldn't try to say, look, this is not good. You know what I mean? To another member, you explore the idea, and like when we're in the jamming session, explore it. And if it's not necessarily vibing with people, then you can't really force that. It has to be, again, it has to be organic, to where, you know, a good song is when everybody is going, oh yeah, this is good. And you want to, you know, you kind of have to sift through the ones that everyone's not feeling. And because, you know, if you might have an idea, and you might have a feeling about a song and say, okay, this is going to be really good. And you bring it to the table. If it just doesn't mesh and it doesn't sound good, or if the producer like Jacob says, all right, guys, this is a weak song. To not take it personally and to say, you know what, let's just put a pin in it. It's the great thing about songs is that they're always going to be there. You know, you can always revisit a song later down the road, or make changes, or you know, make sure that it is ready. So yeah, I agree, man. I think having a producer like Jacob and Justin, and how they worked with us, you know, it helped the record. And there were songs in that recording session that I know that there was a lot of kickback and a lot of button heads on some songs that we were like, nope, this has got to do this. We want to do this. And you just have to work through it. So to answer your question, or to reiterate that, yeah, man, I think having someone that you trust, that's with you, your producer saying this is garbage, you know, don't take it personally. Just kind of see where it goes. Follow the idea, and if it is garbage, then you'll probably realize it sooner than later.
Absolutely. And then I've often said too, music is a lot about timing, whether for the listener or whether for the artist producing it. I don't know how many interviews I've read over the years where an artist is talking about a new album that they've released, and they mention the fact that, yeah, I actually started recording this 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it just wasn't ready during that session, and I put it away. I kept it on the, in progress, side of the studio, and I started listening to some of my old stuff, and I had an idea for another song, and I heard this old demo I did, and the new idea totally meshed with the old demo, and it created this great song. So that happens a lot, and I think for an artist to allow that to happen organically, like you mentioned, I think that's really important, and I think that's a really great thing about a band like Lullwater, where you guys are able to say, hey, let's just table it now. Let's move on to something else that is more ready, or you guys are feeling a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. That's definitely the case for us too. I mean, we've had, again, like the songs Into the Sun, This Life, and I think that was Into the Sun, This Life on Voodoo. Those songs were written, Benny and I pretty much wrote those songs 2009. Like 10 years ago. So it just happened to be like, let's bring these back out. The timing was perfect. The songs are great. And yeah, I think you're right. Timing is everything when it comes to re-releasing a song or revisiting a song to make sure that it's done right.
How would you describe the music of Lullwater?
I think it's a combination of, the interests of all the members that combine into a not necessarily a Southern sound, because we get that a lot, but we don't really consider ourselves a Southern rock band. But you have Ray that's big into metal and hip hop, and then you have Joe, who is an Humphreys McGee fanatic and a Grateful Dead jam band guy, and you have Benny, who is Aerosmith is his favorite band, and classic rock and blues. And then, I listen to everything from country to some metal, but mostly grunge is my biggest influence. So you have all these different musicians that listen to different music, but they all respect and love grunge music and the alternative rock era of Seattle in the early 90s, to where that's kind of where we take our different influences and our different styles and we mix, and that's kind of where the melting pot happens, is the respect and the love of that alternative rock music. So we kind of just created, we love playing that type of music together. So it kind of blends all these different styles of rock, and we just, it creates the Lullwater sound.
We're at the end of 2019. 2020 is upon us here in a few weeks. You guys released a new album this past year. You played everywhere you could. You went on, did some touring. What's on the agenda for 2020?
I think we're going to be touring still, pushing Voodoo. But we do have an acoustic record that's on ice. I don't think it's quite done. But as far as that goes, we've had an acoustic record, just chilling there for about a year now. So, that's going to be something that we're going to release next year. Probably do campaigns for it and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's actually really exciting. And I've been talking about this record in interviews for the last, 6 months or so, because that process was so different and so much fun that, we love being a hard rock band. We love the energy of performing live with loud guitars and drums and just, high energy. But it's something to have this acoustic record with strings and keys. And it's so, it's a lot more delicate. It's a lot more, it's light. I mean, it's lighter. It's not as heavy. You're not just cranking guitars out. So it's really exciting to know that we're going to have this record ready for next year and to see what people think about it.
Are you going to be doing acoustic shows to support it?
I'd love to. I mean, what spawned the whole record was Kevin Martin, Candlebox, called me up. I was like, hey, do you guys want to do, a short run with us on an acoustic tour? And this is, I guess, 2 years ago, maybe, something like that. And we had never done acoustic shows. So we practiced and we got everything ready for the acoustic show. And we played the City Winery. I think we did 2 in Chicago, actually, up where you're from. We did the City Winery up there. And we had an overwhelming response from the fans coming up to the merch table and talking to us. They're just like, oh, my God, you guys should do an acoustic record. And it kind of stuck. So we did. We did an acoustic record. And yeah, I think it's going to be great, man. Who knows? We might actually even do an acoustic tour at some point.
With the acoustic set that you guys did, is this, or the acoustic album that you're about to release, are these songs that are performed acoustic that you've done before, or is this all new material?
So we went back through our catalog. We went back through Self-Titled and Revival and Voodoo, and we picked songs from those 3 records that sounded really, it sounded really good acoustically. And we played it live on that Candlebox run. And so we have re-recorded a lot of the songs from all the albums acoustically, and then we've added one more. So there's going to be one new acoustic song on that record. But yeah, most are already recorded music.
Is there ever going to be a point where you merge the acoustic side and the rock side into one album or into your music?
Like Foo Fighters? Yes, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great example.
Silence and Grace. That would be awesome, dude. Yeah, we've always wanted to do that. I think, blending those two, like when Foo Fighters did that record, that would be amazing, dude. Like after hearing the strings and horns and keys from New Orleans, because we have all those on Voodoo. We have strings and keys, horns, and it makes the record so much bigger. And we had so much fun working with those musicians. Where adding musicians that are playing violin or gypsy violin or cello, it always adds so much. And an acoustic record, you can really hear it a lot better than you can a rock record, I feel like. So yeah, it's really cool to blend those two. And I think one day hopefully we can do, we'll do that. We'll have a record where it is some rock and half of it's, loud guitars, and then we do an acoustic, some acoustic work.
The evolution of a band is so important, especially for the artist performing the music. And when you have the ability to perform your music acoustically and put it out on a record, that's different from what you've done prior to this record. That's always got to be satisfying for you and the band to be able to keep things fresh and to keep things going as a band.
It does. And I think for the acoustic record, we actually did it in Athens. We did it at home. Which is rare for us because we always like to get out of our comfort zone and our element, and being away from home forces you to focus more on the record and the project that you're recording. But yeah, man, it's really fun. Like when Justin flew in from Seattle and all the guys came in and we did this record, it's just such a different experience because the processes might be the same, but your instruments are different, and your entire vibe of the record is different. It's a different focus. So yeah, it's refreshing for sure.
Can you tell us anything about touring or who you're going to tour with in 2020?
I don't know. I think we call them our suits endearingly. Those guys are going to be the ones that line up the touring, that line up the shows. So it's at this point we kind of, we get the call and we say, yeah, let's do that one, or no, let's don't do this or whatever. But for the most part, we're going to be touring as much as we can. I think we definitely did over 100 shows this year. I think it was like 120 or something like that. So we're kind of looking at doing about the same amount next year. And then, but yeah, we're kind of waiting on the call, man. Once the agent sent us the itinerary, we hit the road.
What was your most satisfying moment in 2019 as a band?
2019. I was really excited when Voodoo came out and we were playing those songs on the Seven Dust tour, meeting all those guys in Tremonti and hanging out with the band and crew and getting to know them. That was a highlight. But honestly, I'll tell you that the highlight of this year touring has been with Blacktop, and touring with those guys I think we did 2 tours with those guys this year. Because we're all, we're family, friends and family, obviously. And spending as much time with those guys, on the road every day, that was the highlight of the year. They're best friends of ours. It's a big circus family, and hanging out with them and just playing shows around the country with our best friends was wonderful. It was a great tour. And then meeting otherwise too. Those guys are amazing. They've very quickly became close, dear friends of ours. So it's been a hell of a year, man. Between the record coming out, the Seven Dust tour, and then the 2 tours with Blacktop Mojo. Otherwise, it's been a really good year.
That tour was great. I mean, I saw you guys at the Forge out in Joliet when you guys came through. I was impressed.
Oh, yeah.
It was
freezing that day. Good grief. It was so cold.
Yes, it was.
Like, I remember the Arctic blast. We'd just gotten through Colorado and all the cold. And then I remember Joliet and sitting outside. I was like, 15? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It was wild because it was in November or October. It shouldn't have been that cold. And then everyone around Illinois that we would see like, well, you guys brought the cold with you. Because it's not supposed to be this cold. And I'm like, yeah, we know. We brought it. The name of the tour was the Defy the Sun Tour. So we pissed off some kind of sun god or something.
Yeah, right.
And we decided to just be in the blizzard the last, early 2 weeks of that tour.
Yeah, we had snow in October. And it was the weirdest thing because all the leaves had fallen off the tree because it got cold way too fast. And then the snow was on top of the leaves. So, nobody raked or did their lawn or anything for, 2 weeks because it was too cold and there was still snow on the ground. And it was, I've never seen that happen before. It was crazy.
It was nuts, man. It was crazy because we expected to go out and it be fall.
Right.
We all laughed about it and joked about it before we left. We're like, it was 75 in Athens when we left the first day on tour. And it was like, man, this is going to be great. This is going to be, fall weather. We brought our jackets and we're looking forward to it. And then we hit a snowstorm in Colorado the first show and brought it with us the entire 2 weeks of that tour, man. Exactly what you're talking about.
So now I know the reason. Weather. Now I know the reason it's your fault. So that's
yeah. Defy the Sun tour is what happened all. That's what created the crappy weather.
And it has, that needs to be reported. It needs to be known that it was you guys, you guys doing all that stuff. So, well, John, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Great conversation. Look forward to seeing you guys again. Look forward to the acoustic record. Look forward to coming back on, and talking music anytime you want. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, once again, that's John Strickland from the band Lullwater. This is Jay Scott from The Hook Rocks, your ultimate rock community podcast. Take care, everybody. We'll talk again soon. Thanks.